Hello, my name is Fadi Hammadeh. I'm the General Counsel of Al-Futtaim Group. I've been working with Al-Futtaim Group for the past 15 years. One of the amazing perks of this wonderful group is the fact that over these past 15 years, I have had the fortune to do things that are not in my job description, basically way beyond what I was expected to do when I was hired 15 years ago. Some of these things are the things I'm going to talk about today. Basically, about 6-7 years ago, the group has embarked on a new journey, which is education. So everybody knows Al-Futtaim Group as a successful family business. Now we are in our fourth generation. It's automotive, it's retail, it's insurance, it's real estate, it's all that, it's healthcare. But what many people don't know about Al-Futtaim Group, that it's also a kind and compassionate one. And kindness and compassion runs in the hearts of the owners, from the great-grandfather, Mr. Hamad Majid Al-Futtaim, the grandfather of our current CEO and Vice Chairman. And these values, the values of kindness and compassion and giving back, have been then inculcated in the mind of his son, Mr. Abdullah Al-Futtaim, our chairman, and from there on, they were transmitted dutifully to his son, Umar, and the next generation, and to his siblings. So if business success are the muscles of the group, kindness and compassion has always been the beating heart of it and represents everything that we seek to do at a social construct. So I'm going to share with you my experience, a few years when it comes to education for refugees, a few years following the establishment of Al-Futtaim Education Foundation, which is a not-for-profit foundation established not to line up the pockets of the owners, but to maximize the social footprint of Al-Futtaim Group. And by the way, I'm also a board member or delegated board member of Al-Futtaim Education Foundation. So about 3 years ago, I got an invitation from a humanitarian agency called Sama, which in Arabic translates into the sky. It's a not-for-profit organization founded by some amazing human beings, people who have left a very successful corporate life to support what they believe was the purpose of their lives. They left their families, they left very lucrative careers, and they relocated to Beirut, and more precisely to Shatila camp. For those of you who don't know Shatila camp, it's perhaps the most miserable stretch of sand and mud there is. It's just 1 square meter wherein 40,000 refugees lived without necessary and basic infrastructure, no sewage, no water or electricity. There is 1 clinic and 2 very rudimentary schools there. And most of the refugees there are basically children who ran away from war-torn zones seeking refuge in this refugee camp. So about three years ago, I got an invitation to come and visit. I thought about it, and then I decided to take the trip, although I was cautioned against it. Even the army, the Lebanese army, is reluctant to get into the camp. I felt that somebody should, and then I went there. I spent half a day with these children, probably the most rewarding half a day I've had in recent years. They've welcomed me in what they consider to be their luxury 5-star conference room, which was basically a shell and core, a debilitating building. A few bricks for me, and I sat on one of them, and the kids were in the room, and their amazing volunteer teachers were present, and I was asked to speak about my experience as a Syrian, having come from a similar background, how my journey, how did I make it in life, my education, and then my career. So I arrived at the camp. I didn't know what to expect. To my surprise, all the kids between age 10 and 15 were waiting for me there. Kids that were sponsored by Sama, and Sama was trying very hard to secure education for them in the camp and outside the camp in schools. They were all gathered, perhaps 200 of them, along with their volunteer teachers. And I had the most enjoyable 2 or 3 hours, most spontaneous time talking to these children about my personal experience, having come from the same country, from Syria, how I grew up, how I went and studied abroad, France, UK, whatever, my career as a lawyer. And they found my experience, humble as it may be, extremely inspiring for them. And so we spend a lot of time talking, joking, sharing experience, and shedding a few tears at the time, because these kids, the first striking thing anyone gets is that they have nothing, basically nothing, except hope and resolve. And one of the few things that have struck me the most in my experience is that many of these girls who were there were self-taught. They taught themselves English and just reading books and talking to their teachers. They were not attending any schools. And one particular one stood up towards the end of the session and asked my permission to recite poetry. And she went on reciting poetry for 5-10 minutes, and I thought the quality of that poetry was superior. And I asked her, who's the poet? And she said, it's me. And she wrote that poetry in a foreign language. She was describing her own experience. She will stop, she will shed a few tears, and she will pick it up again. At the end of that day, I was so overwhelmed, and next day I went to the closest bookstore to the camp. It's a bookstore called Al-Halabi, and I picked every book that I could find there, and I went with one of the founders of Sama, and we put all the books on a small pickup and we brought them back to the camp, and I truly felt like Santa Claus. And the love that these kids have had for education, there would have been no other gift that would have been more warmly welcomed than books for them. They were thirsty and hungry for learning. I came back from Dubai so touched by this experience, and I had a chat with Mr. Al-Futtaim about what I have seen there. These amazing children that I have met, many of them want to be doctors, data scientists, programmers, teachers, and their objective, the main objective, was to go back to the camp, educate the children there, and get them out. That was their main objective in life. And following that conversation with Mr. Al-Futtaim, a new program was born. It's called Al-Futtaim Education Program for Refugees Education. This program is now a couple of years old. The program is basically not just providing scholarship for children who are in having the linguistic skills to pursue their education in English. They don't need to be Shakespearean in their abilities, but basic level skills, but also who have the will, not just the skill, the will to come out of the confinements of the camp and embrace the world, come to Dubai, and get educated in one of our 2 schools. We have 2 schools and about 3,000 that educate 3,000 children aged 3 to 18. One British curriculum and the other one American curriculum. So far we have had 2 students, Aseel and Lujain, 2 amazing girls who have done wonderful so far, and they have been a beacon of inspiration for their fellow students. But we're also ready to welcome 2 more children for next academic year, and our program has started with 12 children. We got approval, and there are 13 million refugee kids out there, and we are aware as Al-Futtaim Education that we cannot help everyone, but we also believe that no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. So we start with what we can do. These 13 million children in need of education are facing tremendous challenges. They just only registered 13 million. A lot of children are displaced internally. Many of them are illegal refugees, so they're not registered. So the number is potentially a multiple of that. But the bottom line that many of them are facing existential challenges. Physical and sexual violence is one of the most imminent threats that many children face. Exploitation, early marriages, especially for girls. It is documented that most of the girls in Shatila camp and other refugee camps are thrown into the jaw of early marriage because their parents cannot support their sustenance, their food, so they throw them into early marriages as early as 12 and 14 years old. Disturbing statistics about refugee children around the world. It is estimated that 80% of these children would have seen violence, and a large portion of those who've seen violence, 67%, would have developed post-traumatic stress syndrome, recurring dreams about what they have seen, the destruction, the death, and sometimes it's the death of their own parents and the destruction of their own homes. 50% of them would have been the subject of physical and sexual violence. Many of these children don't have access to education. In fact, the UNESCO numbers tell us that only 25% of these children have certain level of literacy, linguistic and mathematical basic literacy. On the other hand, every year that these children spend in a school will spare them a nefarious outcome like early marriage or violence, and it's well known that those girls who marry early as refugees stand twice the chance of dying through delivery because of their young age and lack of medical facilities. So Al-Futtaim Education Foundation is not out there trying to help everybody, but as the Prophet said, لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق. It means no measure of kindness, no matter how negligible, is not worth it. And even if it's a simple smile. In our case, what the foundation has done, what Al-Futtaim family has done, is that it had created a scholarship program for many of these children to come and study in one of our schools. And on the top of that, what we have tried also is to find them foster houses, because many of them do not only need education or stable education, but they also need an emotionally stable household that addresses some of their early emotional traumas. And so far, for us, the biggest challenge has been not to provide scholarships or free of fees scholarship, which we did, but to find these houses that could host and sponsor these children. Next year, we're hopeful that we will have 2 more children. Our program is open-ended. For the time being, we have secured approval for 12 children, and we are seeking to expand our collaboration with other organizations outside of Shatila camp, other camps, other refugees, other backgrounds, but the objective is the same. The objective is to give these children hope. And there is no bigger hope, there is no bigger investment that these children who have basically nothing can have than education. And the ability to use that education to forge a better and safer future for themselves and their families. Thank you very much.